my channel, Planty Princess 92. My name is Ashley, and in today's video, I wanted to give you a full care guide on how I care for my pink princess philodendron. So I'll briefly explain to you what I started off with you and what I'm going to show you today. I started off with one full plant that I will put up at the top, the link to the unboxing so you can see it all in one piece. And then I decided that I was going to propagate it and make 3 plants out of it. So here is the base with 3 leaves of the pink princess philodendron that I started with. Right here is where I cut, and you can already see that it is putting off a new shoot there. This was the piece that was right on top of this stem. It has 2 leaves. I'm propagating in Leca, Water, Super Thrive, and Newt plant food. It is currently starting to grow. You won't be able to see it in the camera because it's still really tucked inside of here, but it is starting to grow a little nub. You can kind of see it, but it's blurry inside there. So my propagations are doing very well. And then lastly, I have the very tippy top of this pink princess philodendron plant, which has the 2 most beautiful leaves on the whole plant. This pretty leaf right here, and then this speckled leaf right here. And we have the 3rd leaf right there on the way. In this video, I am going to discuss the care needs that I provided this plant, how my plant does in the care needs that I provide it. Also, how I propagated this plant and the success that came along with the way I chose to propagate this plant. I'll start off by giving you a brief description of what the pink princess philodendron is. Its botanical name is Philodendron erubescens. It goes by common names, obviously the pink princess philodendron, the blushing philodendron. This plant is native to Colombia, so it does live in a more tropical region, which is going to sum up and kind of give you an idea of what the care that this plant is going to want, thrive, and love to have. Obviously in Colombia, it's a warmer place, so it's going to want warmer temperatures, it's going to want that brighter light, and it's going to want a little bit of a higher humidity. So first off, we'll start with lighting conditions. When I first got this plant, I was caring for it in an east-facing window. I had it sitting right on the windowsill. It was doing all right. It was kind of growing at a slower pace there. I didn't have it in any humidity or anything like that. It was just kind of hanging out on an east-facing windowsill, getting a lot of that bright morning sunlight, but really nothing else. I since built up a grow tent, which I will also put at the top of the description link for that video if you're interested in seeing that. And ever since I put her in there, she started to put out, she was only a couple leaves, she put out this full pink leaf almost. It just has that little bit of green, but it's nearly fully pink. And that has been ever since I've put her in the grow tent while she was still one full plant. She is in a bright lit room with a north, 2 east, and 1 south facing windows. And the room is, it's a decent size, but it's not overly large. So although it is on the opposite wall and away from all the windows, it is a very brightly lit room. Aside from that, this plant does do very, very well in artificial lighting. I have mine under an artificial grow light, obviously, in my grow tent, and it has really thrived. I think they do best. Obviously, most variegated plants do best with a little bit of brighter light. That's what kind of keeps the variegation coming in, keeps it a little more on the stable side, and keeps it more luminant and, you know, brighter, more attractive. So the variegation, it is a stable variegation. But it does kind of do what it does. It does kind of do what it wants to do. So you will get some leaves that come in a little more speckled. You will get some leaves that come in the half moon, half pink, half green. You will get sometimes maybe leaves that are almost purely green. But the higher light you give it, the more variegation, the more the variegation will be brighter, the more the variegation you will tend to see, at least for my plant anyways. But you do want to give it bright light without it being too direct that it scorches your plant's leaves. So moving on from the light, we will go to humidity. Being this plant is more of a tropical plant and does come from a tropical environment, I would say for it to do at its best, I wouldn't put it anywhere below 40% humidity. I have mine kept in about 70-75% humidity, and it is really loving that. The propagation rate has really been up, and the growth rate has really been up since I've put it in the grow tent with that level of humidity. And I think that really does, along with the artificial lighting, I think the humidity really does have a lot to do with the rate of the growth of the roots and of the foliage. Now, and it can tolerate and survive in, you know, your average household temperatures, but I wouldn't recommend giving it anything lower than 40%. I would recommend keeping it between 50 and 70%. Obviously, the higher end of that spectrum there would be better for this plant, but it will survive and do just fine in the lower end of that spectrum as well. Moving on, let's talk about temperature. This plant, again, the tropical climate and environment, it is going to want more of a warm temperature. I wouldn't say this plant is cold hardy at all. In fact, if you do keep it on a windowsill, I would pull it away from those windows during the colder months, so it's away from drafts, vents, air conditioners, anything with actually even heat too, because that heat will dry up your leaves. But it will appreciate temperatures between 65 and I would say 80 degrees. Right now it's summer, so my average household temperature is probably kept around 65, 68 degrees, and it's doing quite well. Now, because it is in the grow tent with the grow light and a bunch of other plants, it's probably a little bit warmer in there, because they do kind of create this force field around themselves with the other plants, to create kind of their own humid and temperature environment around each other. But it is a little higher than 65 degrees in my grow tent, and this plant is really loving it. Last but not least, I want to talk about propagation. So as I showed you, I have these two cuttings that I took here. All you do for propagation is you chop wherever you see a node. So most of you, I'm sure you know, but just in case you don't, a node is anywhere where a leaf can form out of. So you'll notice that they're the bumpy areas, and a lot of plants will have this line going, like the ring going around the whole stem, to kind of distinguish the fact that it's a node. Right here would be another one. And they also have aerial roots as well. Now, if you can get a cutting with an aerial root, that would start it off and give you a higher success rate and a faster success rate. Being that as long as it's not an aerial root that is like dried up and no longer alive. But that does give it the boost to be able to start taking in water, to start taking in oxygen for the plant. Now you do also need a leaf to propagate this plant. Some plants can be propagated by just the node. That is not the case for this one. This girl does need a leaf to propagate, preferably a leaf with some green, because it certainly needs to photosynthesize to be able to create that energy. So you don't want to take an all pink leaf, chop that off, stick it in water, stick it in soil, stick it in sphagnum, however you choose to propagate, because if it doesn't have any green in it, it won't be able to properly photosynthesize, and therefore it will die off. It most likely won't root, and if it does start to root, by the time it roots enough to get anywhere, it will most likely be dead from not being able to create that energy that it needs. So I chose to root mine in leca because I want to grow these semi-hydroponically. Like I mentioned, you can stick them back into soil, you can stick them in sphagnum, but I have had great success with not only philodendrons, but all of my other plants that I started propagating in leca. I've had a better success rate than with sphagnum or with water. So I mainly did propagate with water, but now ever since I've been transferring a lot of my plants to semi-hydroponics, again, I will link a video up at the top here to show you the videos that I have on converting plants to semi-hydroponics, everything you need to know to do that and to care for plants semi-hydroponically. So if you're interested in doing that, a lot of these philodendrons and monsteras and a lot of these tropical plants, period, do very well in hydroponics. So if that's something you're looking to consider, go ahead and check that video out. Look at some other YouTubers' videos just so you can have a wide spectrum of information on that topic. But anyways, so I went from propagating in just water to propagating in leca and water. So I'll propagate these as I would in water, but instead of just the water, I add the leca in. So I'll add the leca into this pot, but I'll still insert it inside like a cache pot and fill it almost to the brim as if I would if it were propagating normally in water. Once I start to see the new growth, then I will dump some of that water out and treat it and grow it just as I would any other plant that I am fully growing semi-hydroponically. Again, I propagate all my plants with Newt and Super Thrive, and they have been doing super well, especially this plant. I am keeping these propagations in the grow tent with the mother plant. And like I said, they are both growing fantastic roots. I don't want to pull them out of here because I don't want to disturb the growth. But they have started to root really readily, and they both have new growth already starting. I would say these have been propagating for maybe around a month, so they are doing very, very well. If you guys have anything in addition to add to this video, any extra care tips on how you care for your pink princess philodendron, feel free to add them in the comments down below. Thank you guys again for joining me in another video. I hope I gave you a lot of great care tips that you're able to use to care for your plant. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're interested in the content I provide. And as always, every plant's a princess. Bye.